One night, I was driving home from my ex-girlfriend's dad's house. I was visiting him because unfortunately she had passed away and he needed someone, and so did I. I visited with him all day. Then, all of a sudden, it was night, and I knew I needed to head home. He lived in a bad area, so I was a little hesitant about walking to my car, so he walked me. When I got into my car, I thought all was good. I'm in my car. I'm safe. Boy, was I wrong. I left and drove up to the light. It was red. I was sitting there, waiting, and my window was a third of the way down. And I heard someone talking. I look over to see this older gentleman in a nice car. It was a new Malibu. He was commenting on the smoke that was up ahead, clouding the light and the intersection. He said, "Wonder where that smoke is coming from." I added, "Yeah, me too." I wanted to just leave it at that. But he kept talking. "What are your plans tonight? Where are you heading?" He just asked all of these questions that started to set off red flags. The light turned green. I drove away. I drove through the intersection and turned left at the first road because there was too much smoke to drive. When I was driving down that road, I took another left at the first road. I pulled over. I looked down for a moment at my phone, and all of a sudden someone's talking to me at my window. This time, not in a car. He was literally standing outside my window. He said, "Hey, why don't you come take a ride in my nice car with me?" In a low, husky, creepy tone. I quietly added, "No, sorry. I have somewhere I have to be soon." He didn't like that too much. He reached his hand inside of my window and grabbed me by the shirt with one hand, and used his other hand to open my car door. Thankfully, my car doors were locked. I pulled away from him and put my car in drive and drove off as fast as I could. I got on the main road and thought, thank God I got away from that creep. I was going in the opposite direction of where I needed to go, so I was going to turn around until a car appeared in my rear view. They were really close to me, to the point I could see the person through my rear view. It was him. What the fuck is going on right now? I was so shocked that this was actually happening. I didn't think of calling the cops yet. Maybe that was dumb on my part, but I was scared. My cousin lived about 5 minutes away, and she has cameras, so I thought it was the perfect place to go. As I'm heading there, he's still on my tail, getting really close, honking, flashing his lights, then backing off. At one point, I thought I lost him until I reached the road before my cousins, and he reappeared. So I thought of taking a few turns to try to confuse him. Immediate left, another left, and right again. I head back towards my cousin's house. And when I get there, I jump out of the car as fast as I can and run into her house. She sees me all out of breath and asks what's going on. I tell her, and she tells me to stay there for a while, and we'll watch the cameras for a while. I calm for a moment, agree, then sit down. We look at the cameras, and there he is, driving back and forth up and down the road, over and over. He did this for about 45 minutes. Then he stopped. I was so relieved he finally gave up. I was still a little paranoid though. So I stayed and watched the cameras for 30 more minutes. I had somewhere to be, so I didn't wait any longer. I asked her boyfriend and his friends to walk to my car to make sure I safely got in. When I started the car, I seen a car's headlights flash in my rear view just down the road. It was dark, so I couldn't make out what car it was. I immediately got that gut feeling that it could be him, so instead of turning around and going in that direction, like I needed to, I decided to go the opposite way and take a different route. I drove away, took a left at the next road, then took another left on the next road after that. When I was driving down it, a car drove past me in the opposite direction, and I looked over at it and seen it was him. He pulled into a driveway, turned around, and started heading my way once more. I pulled out my phone to call the cops, and it was dead. Just my luck. This was shit out of a movie, and shit my mom warned me about, but I never once thought it would happen to me, even though I don't live in the best town. I live in the better area, but my friends and family live in the bad areas, so I'm there most of the time. Anyway, back to the story. As he passed me and turned around and got behind me again, I kept taking the route I needed to because I was going to head to my boyfriend's work. I knew he would beat this motherfucker's ass till the sun came up and call the cops, so I felt safe going to him. I was about 10 minutes away from his work, so I knew I needed to get there fast and do anything I could to make sure I stayed safe. The guy was following behind me, and it was a narrow road. He pulled up on my ass, flashed his lights, and pushed right up on my back bumper. He was so close, I thought he was going to hit me. I sped up, but his car was better than mine, so it wasn't fast enough. As he sped up and drove up beside me, I looked over at him and he was signaling me to pull over. I kept shaking my head. No. That pissed him off. He started swerving over at my car and I had to do everything in my power to keep control of my car. He won. I flew off the road into a small ditch. I was stopped for a second. He pulled over and got out of his car. I seen a small patch of grass I could drive up on to get back on the road. So I waited for him to get halfway to me before I drove off, so it would take him more time to get back into his car. I drove out of the ditch, got back onto the road, and sped off. I remember hoping I sped past a cop so I would get pulled over, but to no avail. After about 5 minutes of driving, I realized I didn't see him anymore. I thought I finally lost him for good, but part of me still thought he was lurking. I reach my boyfriend's work and jump out of the car and find him. I told him what's going on, so he came out and sat in the car with me. We watched the street to make sure we didn't see him driving by. An hour later, still no crazy kidnapper guy in sight. All right, I finally lost him. I told my boyfriend to go back to work and that I'll call you when I'm home. So we part ways. I drive off and I take a different route to get onto the highway. As I'm on the highway heading home, I get about halfway to the exit I have to take, and I'm sure you guys knows what's happening here. He's behind me again. It just doesn't make any sense. I lost him. How does he keep finding me all across town? Obviously, this guy has done this more than once. I started to panic because I was on a long stretch before my exit. There were a group of cars around us, so I swerved in between them to try to lose him. Now that I'm in front of all the other cars, I figured he wouldn't maneuver his way around and get back up on my bumper again. I looked into my rear view and seen a car coming up fast. Shit, shit, shit. I reached my exit and it was a red light. Fuck, he's going to pull up right behind me. I just told myself, you're almost home. Just keep your doors locked and your windows up. Green light, go. I live in a weird area. It's a dead end, but has a curve. Everyone always has a hard time finding my place, so I knew if I couldn't lose him now, I could lose him by my house. I didn't want him near my house, but at that point I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to get there and run in and tell my mom. He followed me, and as I got near my house, I started turning down different curvy roads that lead to mine. I finally got to my road, and I didn't see him. So I kept going. All right, I'm on my road. Almost there. I finally got into my driveway and ran inside. I was frantic. I told my mom what's been happening for the past about 3 hours. She called the cops, and we walked outside and looked way up the road, and there he was. Just driving back and forth waiting to see me, but he never did. I told the cops, gave a description and the type of car. He didn't even make a report. He just said if you see him again, call 911. Really? I just almost got kidnapped for fuck's sakes. And you're just going to say, well, just watch out and be more careful. I seen him once more the next day. But I drove my other car so he didn't notice it was me. He stayed in my area for a few days. He was on a mission. But he didn't find me, so that's all that matters. I'm just scared for the next girl he's going to try it on. And what if she doesn't get away like I did? 4 years ago, I'm driving across the Colorado, New Mexico border at around 4 a.m., and I'm looking for a place to stop for fuel. I happened along the smallest and saddest little farm town with only one tiny gas station. I hadn't seen another car for hours. It's freezing cold, and it felt like this town was abandoned. It was that quiet. Honestly, it was kind of cool. except for the cold. I'm pumping away feeling like I'm completely alone until I notice another car in the shadows near the back of the building. Flashy black lowrider with completely tinted windows and four right out of a Mexican gangster movie. Looking guys leaning against it. I remember laughing because 1, they startled the hell out me, and 2, they were wearing the black shorts, wife beater tank tops, and the knee-high socks. Remember, it was freezing cold. It was the middle of nowhere, and they looked so casual. Without a word, all 4 got off the car and walked straight towards me until I could see the full sleeves and face tattoos under the pump lights. Dropped the gas pump, fired up the motor, and did the greatest 0, 100 that old girl had ever seen. Not 20 seconds after burning out onto the highway, I see headlights swerve out and follow me. Little did they know, my beat-up-looking Dodge truck had the Hemi motor and a couple of upgrades. They never had a chance, and after a few miles, their headlights disappeared in my rearview mirror. I didn't think much of it, and even laughed at how bad I outran them, till a cop buddy told me about the Mexican cartels running drugs through there to avoid the interstate. I wasn't laughing anymore. I was driving to work, chatting on the phone with my wife, to pass the time. 6-8 hour drive out to the base from our home. And ahead of me was somebody riding a motorcycle. The road we were on was generally straight, Mojave Desert, but had some unpredictable curves because of the road loosely following a broad wash lake bed, like we've discussed. Mojave's desert. The person ahead of me was going between 70-90 nymph and seemed generally familiar with the road. But then they just sailed straight over the edge of a 45 imp curve, going about 80. I made some reactive, disgusted sound and hung up with my wife. I immediately pulled over, called 911 and put them in my pocket, got my trauma kit, and put on gloves. I was talking to the dispatcher and explaining what had happened when I step over the bank and see, to my surprise, not a crumpled body in the sage, but a young guy, mid-20s, picking himself up off the ground about 75 feet ahead of me and 15 feet below. He'd been launched from the motorcycle, which was in terrible shape, about 30 feet from him. I told him to stay still and went through a quick evaluation. He was basically fine, but super rattled. Ended up having a broken collarbone and a mild concussion. Anyway, it's not a ghost story, but I was absolutely certain I'd just seen a person die, and was completely shocked to find him in fine form if a little shaken up. Has anything creepy ever happened to you at night while on a road trip? What was your scariest travel experience? Have you experienced anything scary while on a long road trip? What was the scariest experience you had whilst traveling overseas? What is the scariest thing that happened to you while out camping? Share with us in the comments. I love reading comments.